Hi everyone, glad you could be with me. Today I want to talk about Sky News. Surprise, surprise. It amazes me how often I get upset by what I see on Sky News. Now, for those of you that don't realise this, but by now you perhaps should have, I'm a social democrat. I'm someone who believes in social justice, fairness, equity, and what is best for those people that aren't under the thumb or supposedly under the thumb of capitalism. So what does that mean? Well, when I look at people like Nigel Farage, for example, the great Brexit advocate who appeared apparently at CPAC, which we're likely to experience in just a moment, I come to realise that there are some things that Nigel Farage says that I tend to agree with. There are other things that he says which I totally disagree with. And so what I wanted to do today was to have a look at some of the things that Farage would be saying and what he says at CPAC and wonder whether or not he's on the right or whether he's on the left. So in this speech that you're about to see Sky News play is that he's starting to talk a little bit about being the lockdowns and what they were. That is a very right-wing perspective. But then he talks about capitalism, a concept which I don't necessarily agree with. I particularly don't agree with the power and authority and the way that power and authority is wielded by those people that have money and wealth, and how they are able to influence government decisions based on their wealth. So I do disagree with him at that level, but I also, I agree with him at that level that they are intrusive, that they wield far too much power and far too much influence. But on the other hand, some of the stuff he starts talking about, I do kind of question. So I'm just going to have a look at, so this is introduced by Sky News by Morrow, whatever his name is, which should be tomorrow, but he's not, he's current. And I am also interested in the way that I believe Sky News are becoming more and more Fox-orientated. So they've always taken what appears to be a right-wing view. I think they're stepping further to the right than what they have in the past. And here we have him introducing it. See what happens.
Donald Trump has been speaking at CPAC outside Washington, D.C., but he is not the only one who has been taking the stage at the conference.
Now, I just have to say that CPAC is a conference now which has just become part of the Trump party, the Trump side of the Republican Party. There were quite a few people, including DeSantis, who didn't appear at the rally, and there were lots of other high-profile Republicans who chose not to appear because there's a group of people now who don't necessarily want to side with Trump. Now, the audience used to be a massive audience. It's now dwindled in size. There's been some shots of the audience itself, and there have been hundreds of seats that were spare. So they're not getting the people attending that they used to have attend this conference. And it's just as an indication, I think, of the dwindling aspects of CPAC and the Republican Party itself. Of course, those issues are never raised by those people at Fox or Sky. They still seem to think that the right wing are their heroes and Trump is the one that's going to lead them out of the wilderness, a wilderness which, in fact, he tended to create.
Nigel Farage, no stranger to Sky News viewers, gave an absolute stemliner of a speech yesterday where he warned about the threats to freedom and had some choice words about Australia. To Farage, and I'm sure many of you would agree, COVID, and specifically the response to COVID.
I do have to say the fact that he says that many of you would agree, no, I don't agree. And there would be many people out there in the community who wouldn't agree with you either, who just watch your crap because it's kind of entertaining.
Was one of the worst things that could have happened to the cause of liberty that had previously been fought for in the English-speaking world for centuries.
Now, I just need to make a comment about this because this kind of irritates me, this concept of liberty that they talk about. The fact is that the UK, America, the UK in particular, are imperialists. And in modern history, of course, America's very much an imperialistic country. And so the sense of liberty is a bit odd because they have prevented people from having choosing how they govern and control their own countries, because they take over those countries, that they destroy a person's sense of liberty because for whatever reason the white class, the upper class, the English class often see people as being, if they come from those countries, the indigenous people of those countries, they are often seen as lesser than. So I always get confused when jerks like this talk about liberties being taken from them, when one must consider that for many, many, many hundreds of years, the English people, the people from the United Kingdom, and in more recent times from the US, have made sure that the liberties that people used to enjoy when they were free were taken off them. And in the United States, of course, we can think about African Americans and the fact that their liberties were completely destroyed.
Governments, state governors in America took away from us liberties and freedoms that had been built, defended, fought for over generations and over centuries. We gave...
Again, completely losing sight of the history that sits around his own bloody country, you great jerk.
Unlimited power to people, to lock us inside our houses, to tell us we couldn't visit our elderly relatives, to tell us, in our case, we couldn't even play golf or go fishing.
In our country, took away the land from Indigenous people, endeavoured to wipe Indigenous people off the face of the map. Yep, sure, no history here, buddy, that you need to talk about. And when we look at those events in terms of simply, lockdowns because of a virus that was killing, as it turned out, millions of people worldwide, and the government's effort to try and protect us from that, that is a small price to pay, I guess. Those liberties were taken off us, no one's going to dispute that. But there was a reason why, and it isn't about the government being corrupt in that sense, it's just about them doing what they thought was, under the circumstances, was the best thing for the country and for its citizens, as opposed to imperialistic attitudes and beliefs that destroy cultures.
No, we had to do what big government told us to do. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what tyranny looks like.
And Farage had specifically called out Australia for what has happened to our once freewheeling, freedom-loving society.
This intrigues me because it's almost like, for some reason, we have lost all our freedoms. Well, I can go wherever I like to go. I can go into public places. I choose whether to wear a mask or not, depending on where I am. If I go and see a doctor, though, I have to wear a mask. If I go to a hospital, I have to wear a mask. But, basically, we haven't lost a bloody thing. Where, we can travel wherever we like in the world, basically unvaccinated if we want to. But it is easier if we are vaccinated. So what freedoms have we really lost? Over 2 years, we had some taken away from us, I admit. But basically, we haven't lost anything.
We can go to Australia, which has now become one of the wokest places on earth.
Wokest place on earth.
Well, is he wrong? I don't think so. Besides COVID, Farage also placed a lot of the blame for what has been happening at the feet of big tech.
So why is conservatism doing well in the non-English speaking world and as badly as it is in our world? I'll tell you why. It's what comes from the West Coast. It's what comes from big tech. It is the dominance of those companies in the English-speaking world that has spread this poison through our...
Now, the dominant of big tech is everywhere. It's not just in English-speaking worlds. We look at in China and Japan and India and a whole host of other countries where English isn't necessarily the first language, and we find that tech companies do govern. And I do agree with him here that there is an issue around the power that tech companies have, the power that they wield in order to be able to infect our minds about certain issues, and particularly Twitter. I think is, even though I do subscribe to Twitter, it's a toxic type environment where people can seem to say and do whatever they seem to like. And he brings up Elon Musk in just a moment, and he wants Elon Musk to sort this shit out. They want to sort it out based on their values, on what they believe, on what they believe is right, and what we should or should not hear, according to people like Nigel Farage and the right. But the reality is we need to have an open system where basically we can say whatever we need to say, providing we're not insulting or offending other people. I do disagree with that.
Systems. I'm hoping and praying that Elon Musk taking
over
Twitter starts to redress some of this balance. I really am.
And it wasn't all doom and gloom. Farage suggested that there is still a silent majority in the English-speaking world that could turn the tide for freedom again, even when things look at their darkest.
It could be easy, in a quiet, reflective moment, to think we're losing. And maybe we've lost. Maybe we've lost everything. The Judeo-Christian principles upon which our civilization were founded.
So this is where now I have no idea what Christian or religious belief Farage has got, and I don't give a rat's ass, to be honest. So why is it that suddenly we have this secular argument? What's this really all about? It's about, in some cases, it's a Jewish trope. In other cases, it's about separating people who have different views apart from the Christian views. So that if we hold a view where gay marriage is okay, well, clearly that's not terribly Christian according to these right-wing Christian beliefs that people like Farage have. So what do we do to combat that? Well, we tell him basically you're narrow-minded, you're not as clever and as smart as you thought you were. And, when we look at things like Brexit, for example, the UK is suffering as a result of their decision to go with Brexit. There's no way of arguing anything else but that. But to him, this is about become an isolationist. This is about nationalism, and this is about what the Christian right, in particular, believe they should impose upon all of us. So those of us that have different views to them, that choose to be atheist or non-Christian or have another religious perspective, they, or us, are isolated because our views are different to theirs. So when they're talking about this notion about having liberty taken away, what they're talking about is their version of liberty, their version of right, their version of wrong, and the rest of us, unfortunately, are on the outer and will be persecuted by these dudes in ways which, to me, potentially are horrifying.
Are under attack. The belief that the family is a good thing and a good unit in which to bring up children is viciously under attack. We can easily get down and depressed. The truth is, there is still, in America and across the free world, there is still a mainstream majority for common sense, for...
See, so this is the argument. The argument then, therefore, is that whatever he's saying is common sense and any other views are not. Now, for those of us who wish to be rational and to take things in a more... rational way, we can argue that his views are simply wrong. But we could also argue that he's entitled to his views, that whatever he says and whatever he believes in is okay. He can express that. That's fine. We don't have to agree with him. In his world, he would like to subjugate us to his views so that his views have authority, that he has the power to be able to do whatever he would like to do with us because we are different.
Decency, it's still there.
And to prove his point, he pointed to Scotland, where the odious Nicola Sturgeon was recently evicted from power for her awful transgender rights bill and a hideous case that saw a male rapist sent to a woman's prison because that was how he identified. And he saw this as a cause for hope.
And suddenly, that pendulum that's gone that way for all those years has swung back. Nicola Sturgeon has now resigned as First Minister of Scotland.
I just need to say, my understanding, I have been to Scotland, so I'm not talking out my arse here, and I know that Nicola Sturgeon did a great deal of work for those care leavers, those people that have been in care. She was a fabulous First Minister, and this attack on her is unnecessary, and it's not necessarily the truth, but it is their version of the truth that they want the people on the right to believe, simply because she had a different view of the world than what they do. So I just want you to know that I try to take as best of that balanced view as I can, but there comes a time when we must actually stand up to, and we must fight some of these atrocious beliefs that come from the right wing. And so what I'd like you to do is, if you've got time, please subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and let's have a conversation about some of these things that I think are really important. You don't have to be left or right, you can be somewhere in the middle, but I think that we should be having conversations and we should be challenging some of these bizarre views that are held by others, views I disagree with, but views which I still will support their right to be able to have those views. But we need to be mindful that if people like Nigel Farage had power and authority, and people like Donald Trump get back in, and we have the right wing manifest itself in ways which are really unhelpful here in Australia, we are going to be suffering. The liberties that they talk about them losing will be the liberties that you and I will in turn be losing also. So take care, everybody. Look after yourselves and be safe.